So Starfield is in the news again after all of the controversy that surrounded this game for nothing, in my opinion. As much as many people said the game was a mid game, the game was not that good or whatever, it just seemed like the game would not stay out of people's mouths. And I think that really did help the game more than anything else. I remember telling a lot of people that the more they continued to talk about how Starfield was bad, the more that they were, likely to sell copies of the game on behalf of Bethesda and Xbox and Microsoft. They didn't believe it. But now the game basically was one of the highest selling games on Steam. It stayed in the platinum list, which is the highest, tier in terms of sales with, what was the other game that came out? Call of Duty, with Baldur's Gate 3, with some of the biggest heavy hitters on Steam. And it was actually there in terms of sales, which was very funny because it seemed like there was a Streisand effect of some sort and people did buy the game. I've also seen people from both sides of the conversation who are Bethesda games fans, that they like games that Bethesda make. And some have said, the game is okay, they'll play the game. And some have said they don't like it, they say it's not a good game. But again, how you judge video games is very subjective. This is why at the end of the day, to me, I usually go with the approach of, if you see that a lot of people are playing a game and the game doesn't resonate with you, then the game doesn't resonate with you. If you see a few people playing a game and you like the game, then the game just didn't resonate with a lot of other people. In my case, it's Gotham Knights. I'll look around my whole gaming library and I'll just go play Gotham Knights out of nowhere because the game resonated with me and I enjoy the game. I think it's a good game. Other people say it's not a good game, but it's hard for them to convince me, seeing as I continue to keep playing it over and over again. But I think in the case of Starfield, what's really interesting is if you look at the press, the media, they're talking about it and saying, it's hitting its stride. It's just, finally getting like this, much needed movement that it needed. When in reality, the game's been moving for about a year now and has actually done very well for itself. I mean, if you compare with, say, other games that are in that category, it did decently well. For the game to come out in September and be able to close out the year with at least 5+ million copies and even early access copies that Steam was able to say this game brought in some crazy revenue to Steam, I think that was a compliment in its own right. There's just no way to minimize that. And at the end of the day, it's definitely something that must be, taken a very close look at in the grand scheme of things. So when we actually assess and say, what is the strategic proposition of a lot of these games that Xbox has a hold of, there is, a lot of potential there. Regardless of how anybody may try to downplay it, the market is the market. The market at the time in 2023 was looking forward to an RPG, was looking forward to a space RPG that was going to pretty much, do the things or, somewhat express the things that No Man's Sky did and didn't do well and so on and so forth. And there's a hunger for that kind of game. In fact, I'm sure when they said, when they tell the story about Todd Howard, when he said he wanted to make, what's the name, Elder Scrolls or whatever, Skyrim or so in space, I think it probably was as a result of him seeing No Man's Sky actually do something like that. And it took No Man's Sky a while, and the game has basically become a legendary piece of gaming art. And I think these articles that are pointing to this are saying that, or probably pointing towards the possibility that the game is getting revived now. And the game is getting basically what, a Bethesda game should get, which is modding and all of those things that have always made, the Bethesda games very unique in their own proposition. So for all those who were thinking that the game was going to just somewhat disappear, I remember when Bethesda fans were trying to tell you like, yo, this game isn't going anywhere. The game is one of those games where people buy a Bethesda game and they just sit on those games for many, many years. They have no need to go play any other game once they can get their hands in a Bethesda game and tinker and mod and do all of these things. So at the end of the day, it's not surprising to see all that pan out because those people have the experience and have played a lot of these games. I think what's actually, in a sense, challenging, especially for the PlayStation players who never really played the Bethesda games, is that they didn't really know that this is a huge thing. It's an ecosystem where people just go into these games and they interact with them very differently than, say, your other games, which are usually, one and doneers or whatever it is. And I think this part of the whole equation really does count for for Starfield itself, because you also remember that modding came on Steam almost immediately. Like, they brought the modding to Steam as fast as they possibly could. That's the Bethesda proposition that you're buying. It's not just the game. You're buying the game. You're buying other things that you can do to the game, with the game. man, I see a lot of gamers, especially on the PC side, really sit there and just enjoy that stuff. It's not something you find anywhere else. So in my opinion, I'm, somewhat surprised to see the press kind of warming up to it. It's like all of a sudden they remembered, like, oh, this is a Bethesda game. And so good for them. I'm glad they're realizing, like, crap, even though people may swear it's the worst thing in the world, Bethesda fans, their job is to sit there and mod the game to what it is that they think the game should be. So whether you want to say, the game designers, didn't do a good job or whatever it is, I think they did their job and they shipped the game and they opened up the game for the people who want to play the game a certain way to be able to mod the game, which to me is pro gamer at the end of the day. But anyways, I'll want to hear your thoughts in the comment section. I'm going to get off this video. Thanks so much for your time and audience. I thought it was very interesting to see Starfield in the news again. And hopefully we'll talk pretty soon in another one. Peace out.